Right. So first of all, I know that you're Mr. North. What's your first name?
Alfred William.
Alfred William. Right. And so tell me, you were born in Eddington.
Yeah.
When?
98.
98.
1898.
Mhm.
So that'll bring me up, coming up for 94 in June.
Yes, June next year.
Yeah.
Whereabouts in Eddington?
Do you know Eddington?
Yes, reasonably.
Oh, now, you know what they call the Hermitage? What them, I got a piece of Dr. Peelin wrote in about there.
Oh, yes, yes.
Well, on the opposite side, there was a little cottage up from steps called Myrtle Cottage. Single cottage up for sale, I think, at the present time. That's where my mother and father lived. And I was brought up there. I'm now living now of 10. There was 11 of us, but the older one in me was killed in the First World War before I joined up. And that's where I lived, Eddington.
Oh, yes. And what did your father do?
He's a blacksmith.
Oh, was he?
Yeah.
There was another blacksmith called Willis in Eddington, wasn't there?
Wiggins.
Wiggins, that's right.
Well,
Wiggins.
he worked for him, Bill Wiggins.
Yes.
Yeah, he worked for him. The first one he worked for, before Mr. Wiggins took over, was a Mr. Froud. Bill Froud, he had it, and Mr. Wiggins took it over. My father worked for him then.
Of course, they had a lot of work in those days.
Oh, horses. Well, my father used to walk from Hungerford to Buttermere and shoe horses in them days.
Really?
See, there was no transport then, look.
No.
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 There were no bicycles or what it was, but then they never used them, look. Yeah.
And where did you go to school?
I went to school at the Wesleyan School. Now that's up Church Street. You know,
yes,
just beyond the fire station. Well, that was the Wesleyan School.
Oh, yes.
I went there one night. Yes.
Because, were you still a schoolboy when the new school was built?
Yes, I went up there for 2 or 3 years.
You did?
And that was the first master ever, Mr. Camborne. He was the first headmaster there. Camborne, yes. I had a great 2 years up there, or 2 or 3. Yes.
And then what did you do when you left school?
When I left school, I was a paper boy. I used to push bike from here over to Oxenwood and in Fosbury, daily papers. And then after that, I worked for T.W. Alexander's, the grocers.
Oh, yes.
He's an errand boy, going down on the bicycle with the groceries. And that's where I met my wife. She was a nursery maid at Mr. Pinkney's up at Newtown, what they call Windsor, what they call that now?
Hidden Cottage?
Hidden Cottage it was, but they got a name for it now, haven't they? It's a nursing home now, isn't it?
They still call it Hidden Cottage.
Oh, did they? Well, that's where my wife...
Of course, Miss Betty Pinkney now lives at Patkins, which is a house next door.
Next to you?
No, it's up at Newtown.
Oh, yes, then there's another one, Mrs. Barr Hamilton. And Mrs. Gresham Cook.
Mrs. Gresham Cook, yes.
Well, now, see, my wife brought them 2 girls into the world.
Ah. Well, yes, Mrs. McCabbin is a great friend of mine.
Well, you tell her. You can't see Mr. North, and it's May Pike, her name was. And she'd been up here once. She's with the Conservatives. She come up here once. And she sat with you while I was talking. My wife was there. And after Mrs. talk finished, I said, you know who you've been speaking to? No, she said. Well, she said, that was your nursemaid it. When you were born, she brought you into the world. Well, I never, she said.
Yes.
Because my wife, what was she? No, she'd have been alive now. She'd have been 100 in April next year.
Would she?
Yes.
Yes, well, Betty Pinkney, well, she was born in 1908.
Yes.
So she's getting on, you see.
Yeah, you know, she is, because my wife was there before then, look.
Yes.
Because they lost their sons, didn't they? They was killed in the war. Their brothers.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. So you worked at Alexander's the Great?
Oh, I worked there until I joined the army. And I joined the First World War and saw service out in France on the Somme. I was in the Battle of Somme.
I suppose this was 1916, was it?
16 and 17.
Yes.
I didn't see the Battle of Somme. And then after the war, I come back and was demobbed, or went through demob business, and was told there was no work about at the time, so I joined the regular army. And I went to Chatham, and then from Chatham I went to Gravesend, got on a boat there called the Steamship Kyber. It was a passenger boat. Went out to Far East. We were destined to go to Karachi, but somewhere or another something happened, and we was diverted from Karachi to Persia. That was Persia those days, and now it's Mesopotamia. No, Persia. Now it's called Iran. Isn't it?
Iran, yes.
Well, that was a time when this late Tsar's father had to abdicate, and we'd done a rearguard action to get him out the country.
I remember, yes.
Well, I got, where is it? There's a medal that I had presented to me over the Persian.
Oh.
Over at sea, you see it, Persia. I had that presented, I was friends with that medal, see, after getting him out the country.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, that was the early 1920s.
That's right. Well, then after that, we got transferred to Mesopotamia, well, Iraq now. And we went up to Baghdad and all around that part. Of course, it wasn't the trouble then as there is now, but skirmishes, you know, just to keep the peace. And we was at Baghdad, I was, in the Euphrates and the Tigris, all the what in Basra.
It's interesting.
Yeah, went right up through. Well, when we was in Persia, I went up right up to Barq.
Did
on
you?
The edge of Russia.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I travelled about a bit.
Yes.
And then after we went from Mesopotamia, I went to India, up into the northwest frontier, right up in the top of the north, in a place called Bareilly. And that's where I finished my army service.
What were you, a sapper?
No, just ordinary infantryman.
Infantry,
I'll tell you what I was. I was a servant to an officer. A young officer that joined us at Chatham, come out of the Sandhurst, a young chap. And I was servant to him for 3 or 4 years.
Oh, and went around with him?
Yes, his name was Arthur. He come from Alton in Hampshire. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So how long were you in the army then?
Well, I say 4 years. Yes, only see, there's a piece, look, I had to pick Mr. Peel, I haven't picked him up, but I will one day. Mr. Peeling wrote that. See, now, he's on about that house, you're on about the Hermitage down there. What he said, when Cottles went away in 1908 to 1920, well, he was wrong, because Cottles went away there for the war.
Oh, really?
In 1912. Well, they said Miss Little bought it. But she didn't. After Mr. Cottle went, an old chap named Robert Ames, an old cow dealer, bought it, and lived in it for several years. Then Miss Little's father bought it. That's how she come with it.
I see.
But Dr. Peeling got it all wrong.
Yes.
Of course, I expect you've seen now that Mr. Tarry, you know, he writes about things in the paper.
Yes.
Because he said people want to get to talk to Sonner. They always call me Sonner. They want to go and see Sonner, and all. I think that's the truth out of him about Hungerford. He said, because everybody's all wrong about the places that they've mentioned it in the papers.
Yes.
So,
right, what is this Sonner? Is it S-U-N-N-E-R?
Sonner. S-O-N. S-O-O-N. Yeah, that was my nickname. It was all given me by a school teacher, Miss Winkworth.
Was it?
Yeah, and it's always carried up to the present day. Because Dr. Peeling, when he comes up there, never you call me a Sonner. Yeah.
And why did you get that name?
Well, it's what usual. I couldn't say I called you, so I couldn't tell you why. Whether I had a sunny face or I was happy looking, I don't know. No.